Let's continue by going over importing files into the project panel. I can go under File, Import, or I could use the shortcut which is Command-I for the Mac and Control-I for Windows. Or I could just go ahead and double-click an empty space here in the project panel, and that opens the Import File dialog box. I'm on the desktop. I'm going to navigate to my Project Files folder, to the Media folder, and from here I can choose Audio Files, my multi-camera files, which are video files. They're MOV or QuickTime files. I cannot import my P2 media from here. For that I have to use the Media Browser panel as we saw before. I can also import stills and Photoshop files. Let's go ahead and import an audio file. We just go ahead and choose this Vals Romantica. This is the one that we listened to before. And it appears right here in the project panel. I can go ahead and preview it. Now let's go ahead and import something else. Let's import a video file from the multi-camera files. And this is a video file. Let's go ahead and play it. And I'll stop it. Now let's go ahead and import some stills. I can grab them from here, from my Chicago photos. I can select just one or several at the same time by clicking on one, pressing and holding Shift. That selects several at the same time. I'll click on Open. And I can preview them one at a time, like this. I can add them all to the timeline at the same time by clicking on one, pressing and holding Shift, and clicking the bottom of the list and dragging them to the timeline. And there you go. As you can see, they're a little bit larger than the viewable area. So we can choose when we import these, or rather before we import these, to go to the Preferences files as we saw before, and under General, decide if we want for these to default scale to the frame size. If I choose this, I'll go ahead and click OK, and I'm going to delete these and re-import them. When I place them in the timeline, they're going to be the correct size. For stills, before I import them, I can also select how long they will last in the timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these. And I'm going to go to the Preferences files again. And where it says Still Image Default Duration, I'll change this to 60 frames, which is 2 seconds. I'll re-import the stills. Now if I select either of these stills, you're going to see the duration in here that it says 2 seconds. I can also import Photoshop files in here and Illustrator files as well. Let me go ahead and select a Photoshop file that I have in here. It's called Photoshop file.psd in the Media folder under the Stills. When you choose a multi-layered Photoshop file, Premiere gives you several options. You can merge all the layers, which means it's going to give you a flattened image. You can merge only the selected layers. You can select individual layers to bring in, or you can bring in all the layers as a sequence, document size. As you see, a new bin was placed in our project that contains a sequence. To open this sequence, all we have to do is double-click it. And let me make this a little bit larger so we can see it better. And we have 3 individual files in here which correspond to the 3 individual layers of our Photoshop file. When it comes to some of the tapeless formats like P2, many a times it is better, or really the only way to import them into Premiere is by using the media browser. Let me make this panel a little bit larger. And let me navigate to my desktop. And as we saw before, the P2 footage appears like this in this panel. I can go ahead and import it by just selecting it and dragging it to the timeline or dragging it to the project panel. But I can also import other types of footage this way. For example, I could have imported these Chicago photos from here, the audio file as well from here, and of course the multi-camera files as well from here. As you can see, there's many ways of importing files into Premiere Pro.